listeners, welcome to the Lone Screenplay Nominee podcast, where we talk about films that were solely nominated for an Oscar in the writing categories. I'm your host, Matthew Anderson, and today we have Gordon McNulty, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is a podcast host of himself on a show of his, some of you may have heard of, called The Lone Acting Nominees. Welcome to the show, Gordon. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it was nice. We were as we were setting up today. I'll just share a little anecdotal with the story with our audience real quick. I can't remember exactly how we had contacted each other, but it was funny that you were the one that mentioned, since you talk about your podcast, and we'll get to your introduction in of itself. But it was funny how when we were talking about having you on for the show and so on, and you said something along the lines of like. I'm glad that you're covering the Lone Screenplay Nominees because that just gives me because otherwise I would have had to do more work, and
Yeah.
it's funny, yeah. Now we're reuniting for like what the teens episode already in 2024. So and the show isn't even like a year old, so
Yeah,
it's
that's always good.
yeah. Before we dive into our episode, I always have to ask our typical questions for our guests every time they come on. And obviously I have some for you, Gordon, that I'd like you to answer for our audience. Would you care to
Yeah.
explain exactly what exactly it is you do for a living, or better yet, what your podcast, entails?
Yeah. I can't imagine this is going to be that much of a stretch for audiences to have to put together, but imagine this podcast, only instead it's about acting. It's the same basic premise. It's
Mhm.
movies that only got a single Oscar nomination, and it's in one of the acting categories. I've been doing that for a couple years now. Somehow still haven't missed a week, so
Wow.
proud of myself for that, but also it's a lot of work that I'm putting
Oh
myself
yeah.
through. So we'll get to the other side of that eventually. But there's plenty of really interesting movies on that list, as there are interesting movies on this list. I've done episodes on Misery and Gone Girl and Requiem for a Dream and Saturday Night Fever, uh, and a lot of like more obscure stuff, even by Oscar standards. Obscure to the point that I can't even pull one to mind off the top of my head. But there's some real weird ones in there. It's been a fun journey, and at some point I have you on the schedule down the line to join in. It's just a matter of I schedule things out probably too far in advance. So,
Mhm.
but we'll get there. We'll get there soon enough.
Yeah, I don't want to mention what the episode is yet, but but for the but yeah, when I do come on your show and we actually plan things properly, because I don't think we even have a tentative date yet for it. We just said like sometime in 2024.
Yeah,
What I will do though is I promise, I swear to God, if I have time, I will do my best to watch said film we'll be talking about and the other nominees in that category, just because I haven't seen them before. And one of them, I'm just like, all right, let's just rip the Band-Aid, let's do it.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. I
Yeah.
did that. A brief hint for anyone who wants to know: it's a category I've covered another nominee in before. So I watched that movie you're talking about when I did that one, and oh boy, it is as bad as people say.
Oh boy, Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, you mentioned Requiem for a Dream though. I just saw it a year or two ago, like right before The Whale came out in like the
Yeah,
festivals, and I was just like, holy shit, yeah, Darren Aronofsky is an amazing director. Now, again, I know a lot of people have some controversial takes on The Whale, but
yeah.
we can talk about that another time.
He has made other movies that are good.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah, Black Swan's great.
Yeah, The
Yeah,
Wrestler. Yeah,
Yeah, the one thing I will say though was when you did ask me when we agreed to, be on each other's show, and I was just looking through the list of films, and I'm like, "Oh, Jesus, yeah, whoever decided to do Blonde with you, I pray for you, because I tried watching like an hour of it
yeah.
last year, and it was just God."
That sure is one on my list that I will be doing eventually. Oh boy.
Yeah,
Oh
I
boy.
prayers to you, buddy, is all I'm gonna say about that.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, sure. Whatever gets you through that.
Yeah.
So the other question I have to ask also is, it's always tough to ask what someone's favorite film is. So a better question I feel would be, what's your favorite genre of film?
This is one that this is a question that I sort of toyed back and forth with, and I think it kind of comes out in the movie that we're talking about here. Is that like and this is a real weird, not even really a genre, but like a just like a sort of subcategory. I love anything that's like noir inspired, and I love noir as a genre as well. But something like this that like has the noir elements and applies it to a different type of story. That's always something that really uh, interests me. My favorite movie is The Night of the Hunter, and that's also a movie that takes noir elements and inspiration, but is something else. It is sort of like a gothic fairy. I love a good gothic fairy tale as well. That's also a sub niche that I could throw out there. But yeah, I'm not good at answering questions like that with the just the simple answer of oh comedy or war or romance or horror or whatever. Like I always
Yeah.
am the kind of person that has to come up with whatever bullshit like fake answer anyway. So
Yeah,
I guess
that's
that's my
fine.
answer here.
Yeah. No, that's fine, honestly. Yeah, even if you just said, like, I don't know, like, again, like a subgenre in of itself, like, that'll work. Yeah, I think Night of the Hunter, I think the only thing I can associate that with was someone was covering a movie called Running Scared, and Wayne Kramer said he wanted to create, because it was it Night of the Hunter deals with like children in peril somewhat,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. Then I'm pretty sure someone had said when they were doing like a whole analysis video on Running Scared, they had, the Wayne Kramer, the director of that film, or whoever it was, said that they wanted to create that sort of peril for children, much like Night of the Hunter did in Running Scared.
yeah, that tracks.
But yeah, no, yeah, like I said, really interesting. Once again, glad to have you on the show, to finally be here.
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah, so before we uh get too crazy with all of our interesting discussions and talks we've had so far, we're just gonna get right into our film discussion, in which you would recommend it. So today we're here to discuss Ace in the Hole. I don't know why, but for some reason I accidentally wrote down Ace in the Heart. I'm like, nope,
Oh no,
that's nope. Yeah,
that's
no,
something
Ace in the
else.
Hole. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, totally. So yeah, we're here to discuss Billy Wilder's Ace in the Hole from 1951. As always, this won't be a beat by beat bulletin presentation like you hear on other channels, but we will be discussing major spoilers for our talk. If you haven't seen the film yet and want to hear our full thoughts on it, watch the film and then come back to hear us talk about it. Um, we'll get more into it, but I will say, highly recommend the Criterion
Ooh,
copy if
yeah,
you have some money for it. It's got some nice bonus features I haven't even gotten a chance to get through, but after the movie was done, I was like, I may need to look through some of this. So yeah. Um,
yeah.
so let me just get through the whole, production details, and then we'll get right into our discussion. So after the smash success, both at the box office and at the Oscars with Sunset Boulevard, which was back in 1950 to be exact, is when that film came out, Billy Wilder was given creative control on his next film, Ace in the Hole. He had asked for a percentage on the expected profits from this said film, as everyone assumed this would be another financial hit. And I'm pretty sure he had like a streak of like hit after hit with like The Lost Weekend and definitely Sunset Boulevard, like I said.
Double Indemnity.
Yep.
Yeah, this was like his first box office failure, right?
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Outside of Billy Wilder, the script was co-written by Lester Samuels and Walter Newman. Charles Brackett, who worked with Billy Wilder as a co-writer on over 16 films, including The Lost Weekend from 1945 and A Foreign Affair from 1948. They both didn't work together on this, as the film, from what I read, Billy wanted to make this more of a personal film for him. From what I during my research, that is what I found. And despite all the freedom that he had on the film, Ace in the Hole was a critical and commercial flop at the time, as 1951 audiences were turned off by its utter and unrelenting cynicism. And outside of this being a critical and commercial failure for Billy Wilder, which was a first for him, this also happened to be the first time he started producing his own films. Boy, that's
Whoops.
yeah. Oops. Should have done it for was it Sunset Boulevard? But oh well. So once Ace in the Hole was released and started bombing in theaters, the studio tried desperately to increase the profits by changing its title to The Big Carnival, but didn't do much to help it.
Why
Uh,
would it? Like that's
yeah, exactly. It's
such a
yeah,
wild 1950s studio thing to think about. Like, oh, well, we'll just trick the audiences into thinking this is a new movie, and it didn't even take. That's so funny.
Yeah, it really is funny. And Billy Wilder's next project was Stalag 17, which came out in 1953. Was a hit. Billy Wilder expected that to get a share of the profits, but instead, according to investors and people, with the money, said no, 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 no. Your share of the money as a producer will be making up for this being a box office flop. Which I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus. So outside of its lone writing nomination, the film also received a National Board of Review Award for Jan Sterling in lead actress and did compete in the Venice Film Festival for the Golden Lion, which, if anyone isn't familiar, I'm not even sure if I brought this up before, but the Golden Lion is the equivalent of like, Venice's, hoity-toity top prize. Like the Oscars is Best Picture
Yeah,
prize.
it's like the Palme d'Or.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, from Cannes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The Cannes Film Festival. However, the film lost to Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon, and
That's
and
fair. Yeah.
yeah, which when I read that, I'm like, okay, I haven't seen much Akira Kurosawa work, but I'm like, that adds up. Okay,
That would also make a real interesting double feature just about like I don't know, it works more on paper or not on it works more in theory than like when you really try to nail down what those two movies have in common. But just like vibes wise, that would make a real interesting seeing those back to back.
interesting. And yeah, as far as like what the log line is for those who aren't aware of like what's Ace in the Hole, Matt, you keep talking about, you and Gordon keep talking about this for like 10-15 minutes. You're like, what the hell is the movie about? So anyway, the film is about a frustrated former big city journalist now stuck working for an Albuquerque newspaper, and exploits a story about a man trapped in a cave to rekindle his career. But the situation quickly escalates into an out of control circus, both literally and figuratively.
Hmm.
So, Gordon, I have to ask, what was uh what was your reasoning out of all the films to pick from this? And I assume you had seen this before.
Yes. Yeah. So I've seen this one time, sometime back in high school. I think I watched it on the it wouldn't have even been the Criterion channel at that point. It would have still been Filmstruck before Filmstruck went under. And it was a movie I watched because I was told, oh, you have to watch this movie, and I remember really liking it. And it's been some time since then. I remember the conceit of it. I remember basic plot points along the way, but I didn't really remember like the ins and outs of it. So I wanted a chance to revisit it, and this was as good a reason as any. And also, it's a screenplay podcast, and what better, like genuinely, what better screenwriter has there been in Hollywood than Billy Wilder? I think you'd be hard pressed to find a more than a handful of names that could even compare to him. He's one of the best, and has just a chance to talk about Billy Wilder and talk about one of his not underrated, because this movie has certainly in the decade since gotten more of a reappraisal and is considered one of his best, but like
Yeah.
it's certainly not as prevalent in pop culture as something like The Apartment or Some Like It Hot or Double Indemnity
Mhm.
or even like Sabrina or whatever. Like people don't talk about this movie quite as much, and it's a really good movie, and I'm excited to be talking about it here.
This was my first watch. I believe this was my third Billy Wilder film I'd seen. I haven't so I right here I made sure before you got on. I got a whole list of all the films. I have The Apartment, I have Sabrina, Sunset Boulevard, Witness for the Prosecution, and Ace in the Hole. I have Double Indemnity here somewhere actually behind me. I think it's in like one of the cards because I have like a shit ton of movies in
Oh,
my
me
room,
too. All
and then
around. You can see
and
like a
yeah,
little bit of them here.
I see some of it in the background.
Only
Yeah,
some, because it. Yeah,
um, and then I have some in the entertainment room with the big screen TV we have there. But yeah, it's a lot of movies, old and new. And I always keep getting, people asking me, like, why you keep buying movies that you're never going to watch? And I'm like, well, I have my own personal library. And on the off chance that we have power going out or I have nothing to do, I have a movie to watch. Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, no, my first movie, I was on. Oh god, it was on a previous guest on here. Zeta Short had her own podcast. I'm blanking on what it is at the moment. I'm sorry, but we
The
were on there discussing the Some Like It Hot,
right.
and I think it was like the 100 Passions podcast that we were doing, or
Yeah.
films that didn't make the Passions list. And yeah, it was my second time seeing Billy Wilder. This is my third. First was Double Indemnity. Great movie, by the way, Double Indemnity. Like
Oh
that's
yeah,
really, really good. I saw
yeah,
that in film class at Stevenson University, and yeah, it was a really solid film noir movie. And Barbara Stanwyck, I think her name was.
yeah.
Wow.
She's so good in that. She's so good in
She's
that.
so good, and you could see why she yeah, you could see why she played such a great job playing this, like, you know,
One of the
uh
best femme fatales
yeah, or
in
yeah,
film. Yeah,
yeah, easily. Oh yeah, she's great with that. As for Ace in the Hole, I have to admit I was a little surprised that when the film started, I thought, okay, this is good. It's engaging enough, but I think around the halfway mark, maybe even towards the third act, I was like, okay, now I'm starting to get invested into it. And it might be
yeah,
because of the fact that we had that whole there's a whole like ticking clock almost. And the fact that first off, right off the bat, this character, Chuck, I believe his name is, played by Kirk Douglas, is just a real piece of shit.
absolutely. Yeah,
um
yeah,
and I could see looking back as to why audiences weren't willing to watch this. It's the same reason I think as to why the original Nightmare Alley flopped at the box office, because no one wanted to see Tyrone Power play this like, you know, despicable kind of character. And unfortunately, lightning strike. It struck again with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Excuse me, not Pinocchio.
his Nightmare Alley. Yeah,
I did Nightmare Alley. Yeah, I got
yeah,
Pinocchio on the brain because of what happened today. Yeah. So, but yeah, at the same time though, I really really admired what Billy Wilder was doing with Ace in the Hole. And it's funny, even though it's not as it does share some elements of film noir, even if it isn't a straight up film noir in of itself. Because obviously, a film noir would have like a detective story of some kind or whatever, like Double Indemnity is. It's like a perfect example
yeah,
of film noir. But this definitely does share elements, particularly with what happens in the third act, where Chuck gets his comeuppance,
yeah. You have
and
that
it,
like third act twist. Well, not really
yeah,
twist, but like the sort of development of things where he has that downfall. You have a sort of femme fatale character with Jen Sterling.
yeah,
You have all it's really missing is any sort of crime element other than just the negligence. And but you yeah, it fits those archetypes. You have this drifter coming in out of nowhere and causing this stir. You have the corrupt police. You have a crime, even if it's not like crime that, as you would normally see in a
like a
noir. It's
murder
a
mystery.
oh yeah, no, everything is right up front. Like I had forgotten how like obvious it is that Kirk Douglas is keeping him in that. Yeah, for the like plot of it. Did we say that there's a guy stuck in a mine or stuck in a cave?
We mentioned that in the log line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, I had forgotten how, obvious it is, like, from the very start that Kirk Douglas is keeping that guy there, that he is, manipulating everything around him to be like, "Oh, no, this guy like, we can't just go in and get him." Like, he's prolonging this all to keep him down there, to keep the news cycle going, to keep selling newspapers day after day after day. I had forgotten that we as the audience just are in on that from the very get-go, that
yeah.
we just know right up front that he's doing this in order to manipulate. Like I for whatever reason I had forgotten that, but yeah, he is not a sympathetic character from the beginning, which I can understand. Like you said, 1951 audiences being turned off by such a despicable protagonist, but it really holds up. Like Billy Wilder, again, as with a lot of his films, very ahead of his time, very uh, uh, writing for an audience decades to come, writing
Yeah.
films that hold up for a reason because he had a very forward-thinking just way of writing characters, way of writing drama, way of just depicting anything in his stories. Is very, very compelling screenplay specifically for this one that moves and doesn't ever feel like it's bloated, doesn't ever feel like we're spending too much time away from the main plot of it, because there's very little that actually happens in this movie. It's a very
Yeah.
straightforward story that just happens to have a lot of very peculiar like character ins and outs.
It's interesting how a movie that it speaks a lot about journalism and how the news media can really take a hamper on things and kind of control this whole situation to have this like collective power in terms of like where the money flows and who gets control of what, because Chuck, his character, Kirk Douglas's character, Chuck, has this whole idea of like, I want to, keep him in there, personally, I want to keep him in there. And then but this way, the wife of his gets some money. They get sort of a whole, what do you call it? Like a, not
Uh,
like a fair, but like a donation center going on.
yeah,
And then, they get some money flowing into the cafe to get some kind of cash going. And then you get the powers of the corrupted sheriff. And it's funny, like for such a simple story, it has a lot more complexities than like an over bloated, overwrought, typical like, I'm gonna try to expand this like big expansive story, but tell it in 2 hours. When it's like, just make it simple, because
yeah,
then the ideas are there. You just need to, just the way you present it is how you get a more complex character and story out of it. And one of my favorite aspects about it was the fact that even though by the end of the film he very much gets his comeuppance, but it's almost like by the time he gets stabbed by the Jan Sterling character, it was almost like right then and there he knew it's over. I have no shot at living. And
but
so
he's just driven so much by his just like pure force of being that he lives another like 20 minutes in this movie.
yeah,
Uh, he's such a fascinating character that like everything about him is there in that first scene. He there's no complexity to this character. Uh, but in like the opposite way that you would usually say. Like it's not that he's like um what am I trying to say here?
he has
Uh
a goal. Like
yes.
he has a goal in the film. Like like he'll do whatever it take to bullshit his way into a story and make money. Funny enough, I don't know about you, Gordon, but he reminded me a lot of Lou Bloom from Nightcrawler,
Yes,
because
this movie is very much a proto Nightcrawler.
yeah,
Uh
because watching this the whole time, I'm like, wait, is this a prequel to Nightcrawler? Because this character feels very similar, and like the way he's written and the way that the story is structured, and he's like manipulating people into like power, and I'm like, this is really interesting, and the fact that he has the ball in his court,
yeah,
there.
this movie was very much an influence on that one. But I remembered what I was trying to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's fascinating that he's a character like this that is such a clear, just like total rat bastard from the beginning, and wears that on his sleeve and never wavers from that. Like there's never an ounce of humanity given to him, to the point that like when he's told that Leo is going to die in 12 hours if they
Yeah,
don't get him out of there, and he's in that office with the sheriff and is like, hey, we need to change the plan. We can't keep drilling. We have to go get him out the way that we always could have. Like finally just putting it out on Front Street that like I am manipulating this for a purpose. And the sheriff asks him like, "Hey, why are we doing this now?" And his response, I wrote down so many quotes from this because it's just such a snappy like
I did. I
dialogue
wrote some
heavy
quotes
movie.
too.
But he says, because that man in there is dying, and that's no good for my story. Even in that moment, even as Leo is dying, and he knows full well that he's dying because of him, he doesn't give a shit about this guy. He just doesn't want his story to go sour. He just doesn't like he's even now thinking of himself and thinking entirely of himself. And it's such a fascinating like character study for a character that from his very opening scene tells you everything about him. Another one of the bits I wrote down is when he's pitching himself to the newspaper man in Albuquerque, telling him like, "Oh, I'm going to make you $200 a day because I'm a $250 newspaper man and I'll work for $50 a day." And he's like, "Because I know how to write news. I know how to write sensational news. If nothing happens, I'll go out there and bite a dog." Like it's such a good like but tying into the whole man bites dog newspaper
Yeah,
like headline thing. Like he is going to make headline news whether there's headline news or not, and he knows it, and he knows that's his value. And it's just all of that is out there from the very beginning. This is a character that does not change, does not learn a lesson. All that happens to him is that he dies.
yeah.
But Douglas does such a good job with it, with making this character that could feel like just a one-dimensional asshole, just a, totally unsympathetic, ruthless character, makes him an unsympathetic, ruthless character that we still really want to watch and still kind of want to get away with it because he's so well written and so fascinating. And it really speaks to just how strong of a screenplay this is, that they're able to make a character like this anything.
There's a couple of really good lines he has in the film. One was about the only kind of the only way he would let his story, the only kind of story that sells, like it's when they have a really good ending, and when it has a bad ending, it's like, okay, we don't even want to mention this at all ever
Yeah.
again.
There's another one
Um,
like that I liked. That's another like twist on I mean, the movie does a really good job with twisting on expectations. But
yeah,
bad news sells best. Good news is no news. It's a
yep,
really good twist. The usual saying is good.
mhm,
No news is good news, but he says good news and is no news, and it. I mean, it's sort of
yeah.
explaining the joke there, but it's such a good little bit there. Like, man, this guy has an ethos and it feels like a real character, feels like a real person that is just this absolute bastard.
And there's other lines I'll start quoting off if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. I'm
What
gonna
what
I'm gonna be doing the same thing.
Yeah, one was when he was telling the journalist, when he was asking the sheriff and the cops, like, "Why aren't we allowed to go see Leo? Why is he allowed?" And he ends up going into the tent with them, and he ends up telling was it the Chuck character tells the other journalist, "I'm in the boat, you're in the water." And I thought that
Yeah,
was a great line. There's a couple when he's talking towards the end of the film, as we're starting to get into that third act. His boss from Albuquerque comes in and he tells him he quits, and his buddy that he was sent down as an errand boy with Chuck to go down to this, whatever store it was they were supposed to do originally, still stays with Chuck, and he argues with his former boss to say, you don't expect the kid to stand still. He wants to get going. Going where? Is what his boss says, and I'm like,
yeah.
that's good.
And there's so many
That's
just
pretty good.
little bits. The bit where he shows up to the restaurant and the sheriff is waiting for him because they have a meeting, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
oh," he realizes that Douglas is who he is, and he says like, "Oh, you're the man that's been popping off to me over the phone," and he goes, "Not popping off, just threatening."
just threatening. Yeah,
So many, just such a snap. I mean, Billy Wilder is known for his snappy screenplays. Some Like It Hot is that all over the place. Double Indemnity, The Apartment, Lost Weekend, Sunset Boulevard, obviously the year before. Like a renowned screenwriter, to put it lightly, and for a reason. And this movie, he doesn't miss his stride, even after losing a writing partner like Charles Brackett, who he's worked for so many years.
mhm.
This feels just as much in line with all of his other movies before and after. He just has such a clear voice, such a clear way of writing things, way of writing dialogue, way of writing characters, way of writing plot. Like there's no fat on these bones of
No,
this plot. Everything that happens for a reason.
yeah.
Even the like little interviews when the like TV news and radio news shows up, the interviews with the crowd, those are all in that movie for a reason. Those are all telling you something about the situation, telling you how things have grown. Every like side scene with just Kirk Douglas and Jan Sterling, that all means something. This movie is incredibly efficient with its 111 minutes.
Yeah,
Like
111 minutes.
there's not a whole lot that actually happens
Yeah.
when you look at like the bare bones plot, but every single thing works and is there for a reason, and just it's smooth sailing from start to finish, and it very well couldn't be. There's plenty of movies from around this time that are like trying to tell a story like this of a, some sort of disillusionment or some sort of, terrible guy in a terrible industry getting his comeuppance, that are all
Mhm.
just sort of forgotten because they're just not good and they just don't hold up to modern standards. And
Well,
Ace in the Hole absolutely does.
even to now standards, like when you look at like I'm looking at all these big budget blockbusters and these big budget movies that are like, some of them are even ballooning up to 200 to 350 million dollars, and I'm like, why do you need this much money to begin with? And also, why are like these studio executives, whoever's running Hollywood now, is being like, no, 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 the audience, you got to spell it out for the audience. They won't get it. It's like, no, like you could trust the audience with this kind of stuff. One of my favorite aspects of what Billy Wilder does and his writing crew did in terms of like writing these characters so subtly was how you mentioned with Chuck meets up with the sheriff and they talk with the guy who's in charge of the drilling, or how to get them the guys out. And I love how subtly they don't even spell it out for you. They just say, like, with very few choice words of like, don't you think that's Chuck's job?
Yeah.
Chuck is the one thinking on this.
There
Okay,
you go,
don't
thinking
think.
again.
Yeah, there you go, thinking again. You don't want to do that. And I'm like, that was good, and it made me go, oh, it's like they like you kind of know what these characters are trying to say to each other without saying it out loud in a very public
Oh,
area
absolutely. Yeah,
too.
this is a movie that is that really trusts its audience, obviously more so than maybe uh, it should have for the audience of 1950. But like, there's a whole lot of saying things without saying things in this movie, uh, because Billy Wilder trusts his audience.
Yeah,
The bit where it's when Jan Sterling is about to run off before they have the whole windfall of this becoming like a tourist trap, where Kirk Douglas is trying to get high and mighty and is like, "Oh, why are you abandoning your husband? What are you doing? He's down there and he wants you and he still loves you." And she like says a whole thing about how like, "Oh, don't you get all high and mighty?" I think is what I already just said anyway, but I'll repeat
yeah.
myself. Don't you get all high and mighty about that because you're not doing this for him. You love those rocks just as much as I do. Like, that's a line that it feels so much more of a modern bit of dialogue that's like still sort of infused with that snappy older Hollywood, like, not saying things with it by saying I don't know what I'm really trying to say here, also, but
She's
it's just a good line. I just wanted to
yeah
bring up that line as well.
he's essentially telling her, like, I how much kind of commotion this kind of story can bring. It's like, and you need the money that desperately, so it's best that so I think it's better if you hang around and actually see this thing kind of unfold, because you can make a lot of money, which he does for her. And again, it adds to, again, just making a very simple story but have a lot of complex ideas and just letting them tell as they are.
Absolutely.
um yeah, and the one thing I did like about it was when the circus was coming into town and they were setting up the whole Ferris wheel thing. I thought that was like a really ingenious idea of like, yeah, this is kind of like a circus, like that, like,
It's a media circus.
yeah, it's a media circus, essentially. And also, even with the idea of them, like, selling tickets and selling like popcorn and hot dogs, and even like, okay,
They
it's
have
like,
live music.
yeah, it's like live music. Here's like 2 quarters to
There's
get in.
a novelty song written about Save Leo that they
Yeah,
have like a whole band playing and singing. It's
yeah.
good stuff.
And again, it's really smart commentary. Even filmmaker Spike Lee said this was very much ahead of its time back then, and it's a shame that audiences weren't willing to be on board with this. But again, it's just like we see a lot of movies where if they come out too late, it's all about timing with these films. Where it's like same thing with the Oscars, that you
Yeah.
might mention on your show. Like, if for someone to win an Oscar, there has to be like there can't be enough there can't be a whole lot of competition, and it's all about timing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, where a movie would come out, that's, kind of for this audience, like, 50 years ago, it's like, okay, now it kind of works now because of where we are in society. And, have a movie come out too late and it feels dated.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but no, like I said, I really, really appreciated this film a lot. I'm just going through the rest of my notes to see if there's anything else
Yeah,
I'm
I've got
missing.
a few. Can I make a wild comparison kind of that like isn't really that wild, but like a movie that I think would make a really interesting double feature with this one. Kind
Yeah,
of
go
on
ahead.
on a surface level observation, like you were saying about the like pop-up circus and the media frenzy and the like little quarantine town out in the desert. This movie would make for a real interesting double feature with Asteroid City.
Oh yeah, I kind of would. I mean,
I
like, tonally,
like
they're very different, but
Yeah, but
yeah, that
there's
actually
some stuff
would.
there. There's some stuff there
Yeah.
that I think
Wow.
you might find like I wonder if this had some sort of influence on that. I feel like this feels like a kind of movie that Wes Anderson would be super into, even if it's not really his filmmaking style. Like this seems like a movie that would have an influence on him with a more, I don't know. I'd be interested to see him do something of this sort of like darker satirical nature at some point.
Man. Yeah, if he shows up at this year's Oscars, someone better get a microphone to him and ask him, was Asteroid City inspired by Ace in the Hole?
You never know. Might have been.
Um,
Might have been.
yeah, but
Uh,
yeah,
Other
no.
notes that I have in here. Oh, this is also just a surface level thing that's not really about screenplay at all. But the actor that plays Leo's dad looks exactly like David Strathairn, and I couldn't not
Yeah,
notice it. Anytime he showed up, I was like, man, that guy looks so much like David Strathairn. And
yeah,
that's really all I have to say about that. That's my only observation there. But
yeah.
I thought it was funny.
I'm not sure if I even told you this off air, but this is my first Kirk Douglas movie I've ever seen.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
He's pretty good in the film,
Oh
and
yeah.
what's funny is that when he was in the beginning of the film and he's sitting in the chair, with like his head back and he's talking about the chicken tacos. I
Yeah.
was just like, oh yeah, you don't even need to take a paternity test. He's Michael Douglas's father.
He's
There's
absolutely, yeah.
there's no fucking way he is not. Absolutely, yeah, no, he is totally his dad. And a
Yeah.
couple other aspects of the film that I really admired in terms of like the little details within the writing and production elements. I like the way at the beginning, or at least twice throughout the film, he flicked the flame off of his matchstick
Yes.
off
Yes, I was
the
going to mention that too. I
typewriter.
love that.
I love that little detail. Like I've
Such
never
a
seen
good.
that done before.
And
Um,
I imagine because it happened in this movie and everyone who saw it was like, "Oh, we can't do that again," because he did it so well in this one that it would just be copying Ace in the Hole.
yeah.
I
Unless
love that
people
little
actually
detail.
saw it back then.
Yes.
Um,
I do want to mention, because we're talking here about the film's screenplay.
yeah,
I mean, this is something that carries through a lot of Billy Wilder's filmography, but this has such a good closing line. Like, of spoilers. I mean, it's all spoilers,
yeah.
but
We already spoiled the
yeah,
movie. Yeah,
he's
don't
like
worry, you're good.
he's stumbled back into the newspaper office, and he's very clearly dying, and it's a shot like from the floor up at him, and he's sort of stumbling, and he goes, is it boot is the that doesn't really matter. He goes, hey, you want to make $1,000 a day? I'll make you $1,000 a day. I'm $1,000 a day newspaper man, and you can have me for nothing. And he falls on the ground and dies, and it's such a
Yeah,
good ending line. Like, I mean, Sunset Boulevard has an all, like, if you're making a list of the all-time great last lines in movies, you could easily have Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, and The Apartment in your top 10, and it's not gonna feel like you're overdoing it on the Billy Wilder, because
yeah.
they're just such iconic lines. And I might put this one even above, not all of this. I'm not putting this above Nobody's Perfect. I'm not putting this above Mr. DeMille, I'm Ready for My Close Up. But like, it's a real good one. It's a real good closing, like, summation of the whole movie.
Am I correct in saying that he probably wasn't wearing any kind of like padding for his
I
his
imagine
legs?
not. Yeah, that seems
Okay,
like
yeah,
Kirk Douglas just doing that fall.
yeah, because I just realized I'm like, yeah, the way that camera's framed, I'm like, wait, it's the 50s. They didn't have safety precautions. I'm like, oh shit, okay, maybe he actually did have to do that
And
fall for
and
himself.
it's not a stuntman, because it's the one
No,
continuous shot and it ends on his face. Like, he is falling face first. He's not catching himself. It's a good fall.
yeah, oh
It's
yeah,
a good bit. Yeah.
yeah, and even the way it was framed to begin with, I was like, wow, this is a really good shot. And then he falls into frame. I'm like, perfect, awesome, that was great.
Perfect ending.
Um,
Truly.
yeah, there was I also loved that when he goes to the Albuquerque office to begin with, he sees the sign "Tell the Truth."
Yeah.
It was like a little detail I didn't notice until they went to a close up of his boss, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's a good little detail to have in your
Good mise en scène there,
film.
yeah.
Even another aspect too I want to praise is the visual epic scale to it all. Like when
Yeah.
there's a shot in the film towards like maybe closer to the end of the film where the guys are setting up their barrels and such, and we follow this guy over from whatever he is vehicle, and then we see like a whole wide shot all the way in the back
There's
of, you
so
know,
many extras.
yeah, so many extras, so many circuses. I found out they actually had to pay. They paid all these extras like a couple bucks or whatever, and they said something like along the lines of like, "We'll pay you 50 or $100 extra if you bring your own cars." And then I
Yeah,
realized, and it was right there, I was like, "Oh yeah, this was technically like a modern film at the time because it was set during that time period where again, someone like if Guillermo del Toro did Nightmare Alley, he would have to get all the cars right, all the
yeah, all the
circuses, all the
period
clothing,
actor,
yeah, the
yeah,
period, and it's like that would cost even more money than if you were to do it just make it modern. That's
yeah.
probably why the
Bring your
budget was
car.
so low.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There was something else I wanted to mention about that. Oh, I do love the shot after he's announced that Leo has died, and there's a little bit of him back inside, just sort of like arguing with people. At this point, he's already been stabbed, and he stumbles back outside, and it's just him and the sign that says like Leo Minosa fundraiser, and everyone's gone. There's
yeah,
not a trace. It's like maybe the most damning moment of the movie about how like the sensationalism, nobody has stuck around, nobody's lingering. They've all moved on to whatever the next thing is. There's more news to be reported on. Like
yep,
that's the fleeting nature of the whole thing that the movie's talking about. Like there's a point where Jan Sterling is like flirting with Kirk Douglas and is like, "Oh, I really like the way you wrote me up in today's newspaper. I come across so well." And he goes, "Oh, well, that's today's newspaper. Tomorrow that'll be used to wrap up today's fish." And
yeah,
it's just like everything about this movie is about how endlessly churning the news cycle is and how easy it is to exploit it. And like from an active level as the news man, as the writers, and from the passive level of all of these people that are flocking to see this man who's stuck in a cave, and then as soon as he's dead, they're all leaving, they're all fucking off to do whatever they're going to do. It's a really harrowing shot when you, because it sits with it really makes you like sit and ponder the emptiness of that frame. It's a really well shot movie.
even the where is it? I had it right here. One other detail I liked was when the parents offer him their bedroom to
Yeah,
Chuck, and his place ends up being like a newspaper office in of itself where the phone's constantly ringing. Where he's like, "Who is this? New York? I'll call you back in half an hour. Who is this? Vermont? I'll call you back in half an hour." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just like a constant." It really is, like his own little New York was it his own little newspaper office.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but no, I thought that was like a really good, detail to the film as a whole. I'm just
Oh
looking
yeah,
through it to
there's
see if there's.
yeah, I think I've gone through most of mine. Oh, there was one. There's a whole like monologue he goes on at the office before any of the real plot of it is, where he's just talking about how much he misses New York and New
Yeah,
York things, and how boring it is here, and how there's no news and there's nothing interesting that happens. And there's a line that I liked that felt again out of place for 1951, but more at place in something like Network, which is also very heavily inspired by this movie, where he
yep.
goes over to like the like old lady that had done the cross stitching of the tell the truth thing, and he's like, "Oh, how about we make our own news? You'd make a good trunk killing. I could do wonders with your dismembered body."
Oh
Just like
yeah,
full on, like, "Hey, news is slow. I could murder you if you want. That would make a
yeah,
news story." That's a
yeah.
it's a
Doing
good
whatever it
little
takes.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, like his arc is pretty much like whatever it takes to get back to his job in New York City.
Yeah,
You
he's
know,
doing all of this just because he wants to get rehired. He wants his old desk back. He wants to
yeah.
be vindictive and show that he wasn't worth firing. And it ends up not working in the end.
Yeah, so while we're wrapping up and getting into our conclusion section of the film and some of the awards talk and such, any final thoughts you had on the overall film itself?
Not specifically. I've gone through most of my notes, which were mostly just really good lines that I wrote down. But yeah, no, I think I got through all I had to say.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, as for me, I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely I'm gonna try to find some time over the next few days. I might even try this weekend. We'll see how my schedule is. Because there's really nothing much playing in theaters now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay, I'm already caught up with all my Oscar bullshit movies. That I'll talk about a little bit off air. But outside of that, though, I'm caught up with everything I need for the Oscars at the moment, and I'm just like, okay, while I'm just waiting to around to find a job, I'll just watch the movie. So I
Yeah.
might be throwing on Billy Wilder tonight. We'll see.
Absolutely. You got a whole stack there to get through.
Yeah. Oh, easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as far as the awards conversation goes with the film, I always have to ask if this was, in your opinion, worthy of its sole writing nomination it got.
Oh, absolutely, and then some. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is a. I looked briefly at the field here. The winner was An American in Paris, which is the Best Picture winner. Not really a screenplay movie. Like that's a fine movie, but like the second half of it is just a dance number or whatever. It's fine. I understand why it wins, and then the other three I have never heard of and I didn't watch and I can't even tell you what they are. There's like a war movie and a biblical epic and like a race relations movie if I remember. Uh
Uh, David and Bathsheba, Go for Broke, and The Well.
right. Yeah.
I I think one of them is actually going to be something I might have to cover down the road. I don't
That
think it's gonna
doesn't
be
surprise
anytime
me.
soon though.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, there was a time where we had a lot of before we got into the expanded ballot lineup, there were a lot of films that were like lone screenplay nominees. I mean, it's a lot more common you get a lone acting nominee than a
Yeah.
screenplay nominee. I mean, look at this year's upcoming Oscars. Coleman Domingo and Daniel Brooks are like the newly minted lone acting nominees.
Yeah.
Um,
How
whereas this
many
year,
how
go ahead.
many sorry, how many do you have total on your list? How many loan? Cuz I went through years ago and I drafted up the list myself, but like I'm sure I missed some. I was not nearly as proactive about making sure I got all of them. So what's the like number there on lone screenplay nominees? If you have it offhand.
Of the ones that I found, and these are also including ones that there's gonna be some older, very older ones. And I'm just letting my audience know there's gonna be a lot of older ones that I can't have access of because they're just
Yeah.
gone.
It's just lost movies,
So
yeah.
I'm only gonna be able to cover what I can get my
Yeah.
hands on in general. I think over 160 films.
Okay, yeah, that tracks. I
Yeah.
have like I just hit 270 this year on mine. So yeah, it's a
Oh
bit more
wow.
common to have the lone acting, but it's still pretty often that you get a lone screenplay.
I mean, and this year was May December, and we
It
hadn't
sure
had.
was.
Before that, you'd have to go to Glass Onion, and then before that, we had The White Tiger. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, they again, the lone screenplay nominees do happen. It's just now that we're in an expanded ballot era, there's
it's
usually
less
like
common. Yeah,
it's like usually maybe one at best. You don't get multiple ones like we did in the 50s. As
yeah,
far as I'll try to be quick with this though, with the award stuff. Because I the moment I was like, all right, well, it kind of sucks. It's only got a lone screenplay nominee. What was this competition? I see Place in the Sun, African Queen, American in Paris, Streetcar Named Desire. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, yeah, that's why.
Pretty
And
good year for the
yeah,
most part.
yeah, Place in the Sun is fantastic. I watched that during COVID with my grandma. She was the one who showed me that film, and oh my god, that was a great movie. And yeah, you want to talk about a knockout bombshell? Oh,
Yeah, I
with
still need to see that one.
yeah.
I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I'm of course referring to Elizabeth Taylor, by the way.
Yeah,
But Place in the Sun, I would highly recommend. That's a great movie. And Streetcar Named Desire, we got. Funny enough, I'm pretty sure that was the last time. No, it was Network. Network, I think,
yeah.
was the yeah. So this year marked the
First of
first
three.
time. I'm sorry.
First of three. I
Yeah,
know what
for
you're getting into. Yeah,
Yeah, this marked the first of 3 times in which a single film won 3 acting wins the same night. Streetcar Named Desire was one, Network was another, and then we didn't have another one until about a year ago with Everything Ever Rolled Once.
hmm
So that was a pretty cool record we broke. I'm like, Jesus.
yeah.
Yeah, there's gonna be a couple other records we'll be breaking probably this year or maybe in the next couple of years, but
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I keep forgetting. Yeah, Humphrey Bogart finally got his Oscar for African Queen.
Good for I haven't seen that one either,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I own a copy of it here at the house.
I think I do
But
too, somewhere around here.
yeah. Yeah, it's hidden in all my, in this, child's ball play area of a movie collection for me, but it's
Yeah.
here somewhere. Yeah, as far as like other nomination potential, obviously yes. Ace in the Hole deserved its Oscar nomination, and I'd have to go through the whole list
Oh, I'd
because
I'd throw this in all over my ballot. I mean, picture, director,
yeah,
actor,
okay,
supporting actress for Jen Sterling, maybe even supporting actor for the guy playing Leo. It's a really good performance whenever they cut back to him.
okay.
Editing, cinematography, production design for the whole like pop up circus town that they have built around there. Yeah, I would throw this movie all over the place for Oscar consideration. Personally,
Oh boy. Yeah, no, I'm curious to know what you think of Place in the Sun because I keep
I
forgetting.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, again, I when you see it, let me know because I
Yeah,
keep forgetting it was like a big awards winner. Like it won editing, it won costumes, it won cinematography, it won production
didn't it win
design.
director?
Yeah, it won director and adapted screenplay. Which, yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to get that ever again, especially in an expanded lineup of like a film winning director and screenplay, but not win picture.
Yeah,
Because I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Usually it's like a split between like director and screenplay, which we might get this year. We'll see.
I'm predicting it.
Of what? Oh, okay, all right. We'll have to talk off air about that because I
Yeah,
got a couple questions regarding with that for this upcoming Oscar. But yeah, as far as Ace in the Hole, definitely worthy of its screenplay nomination. I would say Kirk Douglas would definitely be a possible mention for lead actor. Again, it's kind of hard for me to judge and be like, oh, really? Like this like Arthur Kennedy or Frederick March got in over Douglas. Boo. Like I really can't just because I haven't seen those films yet.
yeah,
But of the main films I have seen of that year, it was A Place in the Sun and A Streetcar Named Desire are the only two big ones I've seen. Um, but yeah, yeah, no, like I said, I'll have to, if I ever do come back to this category, hopefully by then I'll have seen more acting nominees and the rest of the picture and director nominees. But
yeah,
yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
otherwise, yeah, like I said, worthy of its lone screenplay nominee and maybe some more. So,
Totally agreed.
once again, Gordon, I would just like to say thank you again for dedicating your time being here on the show. Before we
Yeah,
sign off, is there anything you'd like to plug in or where our listeners can follow you along?
yeah. I'll just plug my podcast again. It's the Lone Acting Nominees wherever you get your podcasts. It's on Twitter and Letterboxd at Lone Acting Noms and on Instagram at the Lone Acting Nominees.
Awesome. And you can follow me and the show through Linktree under at Matthew995, where you can follow along on all my social media accounts, such as Twitter and Letterboxd. On the same site, I provide a link for where you can listen to more episodes of the show. And if you're interested in being in the hot seat like Gordon here has today, let me know and hopefully we can arrange that happening soon. In the meantime, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode and we hope to see you at the movies. Take care, guys.